I used to think that I was going to need a ton of acreage in order to grow fruit trees, but that's not really the case. I actually grow 18 different fruit trees in my quarter-acre lot backyard property. And today I'm going to share with you the 3 best and the 3 worst fruit trees that you can grow in a small garden. So we're going to start out with the top ones, and the best one that I can tell you that will grow in a small space is a mulberry, but specifically a dwarf mulberry. I'm going to be scoring all the different fruit trees with 5 different conditions, so that way you can see what makes them good for a small space versus what doesn't make them good for a small space. So the first one's going to be time to harvest, how quickly you can get a harvest. The next one's going to be their size. Then we're going to talk about their sweetness, or their bricks, which is their sugar content, how much they yield for one particular small tree, and then also their maintenance. So when it comes to a dwarf mulberry, these things are amazing. They will fruit on the first year. Now make sure that you're growing them from a grafted tree rather than from a seed. If you grow any fruit tree from a seed, they're going to take years. But if you take a grafted like these, this is a world's best and a Thai dwarf. This one's a semi-dwarf, that one's a full dwarf, meaning that these trees stay pretty small. Even at their largest height, if I didn't prune them, they're only going to get about 12 feet tall. But I prune them, as you can see, down to about 6 feet tall. The Thai dwarf I get down to 5 feet tall, so they can stay in a really compact spot. You do not want to get non-dwarf varieties, because mulberry trees, the non-dwarf varieties, get very, very big. Now, from a yield perspective, I've never seen a tree this tiny create so much fruit. This last season, I think I got 30 pounds of fruit, 30 pounds of berries. Like it's always so much. I always have to figure out things to do with these berries because I run out of stuff. There's so much, but smoothies are a great option. This year I made a freeze-dried Kool-Aid. Lots of really fun things you could do with all the berries that these guys produce. On a sweetness scale, the Brix, B-R-I-X, they score them between a 10 and a 16, which is not super sweet, but it isn't, you know, nothing. So they're kind of mid-level when it comes to sweetness, so you're not getting an immense amount of sugar, but this is pretty common with most berries. Most berries kind of sit in that 10 to 16 range. Now, from a maintenance perspective, these guys do have a little bit of maintenance, because in order to keep them super small, like 5 feet, you do want to prune them. And since they grow so aggressively, so quickly, you want to prune them at least 2 to sometimes 3 times a year. The other thing is the birds really love these berries, and so they will eat them if you're not quick enough to harvest, or if you allow the fruit to fall to the ground. They'll pick them up, they'll chew them, eat them, and then they'll poop purple all throughout the neighborhood. So to be a good neighbor, clean up the berries underneath the tree and make sure you're harvesting every 2 or 3 days during the fruiting season. It's getting pretty hot, so it's time to put the hair up. Florida summers are no joke. Thankfully, these fruit trees really love our heat, and one of the ones that really love to grow in a small space is citrus. Particularly this guy right here is a sugar bell mandarin fruit tree. Now this one is special for a lot of reasons, but one thing you might notice is it's in my pool patio. And you probably can't see the bottom here, but it's in a pot. Eventually, I am going to find it a spot out in the yard, because it will prefer to be in the ground, and it will produce more larger size mandarins if it is in the ground. But I don't have a spot for it right now. So until I have a spot for it, this guy lives right here. Now, in terms of speed to harvest, they're about 2 to 3 years in the ground. In terms of sweetness, it's a little bit less than the mulberries, weirdly enough. I think it was a 10 to 13 on the Brix scale. So a little bit less sweet, but you know mandarins. Mandarins are amazing. They taste so good. So you can imagine like kind of what a mulberry would taste like in sweetness when you compare it to how sweet a mandarin is. This guy tends to be a little bit smaller, in the 6 to 10 feet range. So it is what is considered a dwarf. Now the cool thing about mandarins are that, or any really citrus, is that you can prune them down to whatever size you want. So a lot of people will keep these guys as bushes rather than as trees, but you can do trees as well. They're gonna grow to the height that you allow them to, which does mean they need a decent amount of pruning. So at least twice a year. I would do a summer and a winter prune for these guys. Now in terms of maintenance, the biggest thing about maintenance with citrus in general is HLB. HLB is citrus greening disease. There is an Asian psyllid bug that came over accidentally and pretty much infected all of the citrus trees in Florida. It was catastrophic. It basically wiped out all of the citrus orchards here in Florida. It is awful. It took out pretty much all of the citrus in people's backyard gardens. If you grew up around the same time I did here in Florida, you remember everyone had a citrus tree. Some people had grapefruit, some had oranges, some had kumquats. There was a million different citrus fruits trees, everyone's yard. But that has slowly went away. You will see them still because there are some that have survived. But most of what you see now is the root stock. So when they bought their trees, they're grafted onto a different rootstock that does better for our Florida sandy soil. And you get sour oranges, which is the rootstock of most of these. So the top tree will have died from citrus greening disease, and then the rootstock comes up and puts out sour oranges, which nobody likes to eat those. Some people do, I don't know, guys. But anyway, the cool thing about this one, the Sugar Belt Mandarin, is that it's HLB or citrus greening disease resistant. It does get the disease. In fact, I can already see where the psyllid has kind of pinched the leaves. It makes a very distinct mark on the leaves. I could already see that it's gotten to this one. It's also gotten to my lemon, which is not resistant. The difference between these two is that lemon will die in about 3 years. Even with really great care, it's probably going to die in a few years. Whereas this one will live for a lot longer. I don't know if we're 100% sure how long it will live with the disease, but it doesn't show the effects of the disease. So it still gets it. The leaves might look bad. You might still get the bites from the bug. You know, it still needs the proper care and, you know, fertilizing and all the things to make sure that it doesn't produce like the old school ones used to. You just stick it in the ground and you'd have hundreds of thousands of oranges. But these guys, you know, you have to treat them a little bit more gently because of that citrus greening disease. But because it's resistant means it could last for a long time. Fingers crossed, 10 years would be awesome. I would be stoked with 10 years. Rounding out our top 3 best fruit trees to grow in a small space is gonna be this guy right here. This is a Lowquat. Very beautiful, very tropical tree. A lot of times people use them as ornamentals rather than as fruit trees. But the variety I have, I forget the name, here it is. Yehuda, Y-E-H-U-D-A, makes very large Lowquats. They are not the little tiny small round ones. They have like an oval shape. Now these guys take a little bit longer, 3 to 5 years to produce. When I put this guy in the ground, it took him 3 years with good care and all the things. On a brick sweetness scale, they take a 9 to a 13. Weirdly enough, less than the mulberry, less than the mandarins, but weirdly enough, I think they're sweeter than both of them. I don't know if it's my variety, tends to be extremely sweet, but wow, they have now quickly become my favorite fruit. Now, I didn't get very many. I think I got like 12 the first year, so I'm really expecting a lot from this guy next year because I am obsessed with the taste of these. They're so good. It's hard to describe them, but it's almost like every tropical fruit had a baby. So pineapple mixed with orange, mixed with mango, like really, really good. The yields, they're about 35 pounds on a full grown mature tree. So a little bit better than the mulberry, not as much as the mandarin. Now, in terms of size, these guys can get big depending on your variety. Once again, you're looking for dwarfs, small trees, guys, or ones that you can prune back. This guy can get between 15 and 25. That is not a small tree. So I prune him. I let him get as tall as he kind of wants, but eventually I am going to top him at the point that I can't reach anymore with a step stool. And then you have to kind of keep them smaller in terms of their width, like how wide do you want them to get. But I have seen some that grow more closer to that 15 feet height rather than the 25. I'm not 100% sure about this variety, how tall it gets, but when I was talking to Pete at Green Dreams, he did take into account when we were looking through trees, you know, that I needed short, small trees. So hopefully this one is a small one. Now, in terms of maintenance, none. Absolutely nothing. The first year I put it in, it seemed to have a little trouble with powdery mildew, but this last year, like, no problem whatsoever. I don't fertilize it. I don't do anything. I don't spray it for pests. It is like, does so well here with zero effort whatsoever. It is phenomenal. And I don't water it either, guys. It gets watered like from the rain, or during our drought season, our sprinklers might hit it every now and again, but I mean, this guy is like the most low maintenance tree that you could possibly grow, and it is absolutely fantastic taste-wise. The first one on our list for the 3 worst fruit trees to grow in your backyard garden is gonna start with this guy right here, which is a mango in a pot. We're gonna talk about that. But the primary reason why the mango is not my #1 pick for backyard gardens, especially small backyard gardens, is because how big this tree gets. 30 feet on average, sometimes bigger, and that's not even taking into account its spread. It gets very wide. The reason I have it in a pot, I desperately love mangoes. Up until this last year when I tasted a Lowquat, a mango was my favorite fruit on the planet. And I've been wanting to grow them for years in my garden. I have bought 3, I think at this point, 3 mango trees grafted. I have planted them. I was gonna give them the space. I was gonna give them so much space. But every winter they get killed right to the ground. It's not, I'm still in Florida. I'm in Central Florida, but my particular area has like a microclimate of very cold during the winter, very hot during the summer. Like it's very weird. Like I sometimes get as hot as Miami and I'm not even close to that. But I get as cold as like Georgia. Like I don't understand what's happening in my particular area, but something about my climate, these guys just can't handle it here. Typically in zone 9 they can, as long as you're in the, you know, B part versus the A part. But for me, they don't work. From a Brix taste scale, a sweetness scale, top of the list, 18 to 20. One of the sweetest fruits that you can possibly eat. It is amazing, and they come in so many varieties. This is a Glen mango. This is definitely the mango you want to grow if you're a first-time mango grower. It is just out of the box, a simple one to grow. Now, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Like, I know I can't put it in the yard. It's too big to grow in a pot. I'm just making dreams come true over here. I don't know yet. Now, in terms of fruiting, they take a while to fruit as well. Minimum 3 years for a grafted tree, but you're probably looking closer to 5. In terms of maintenance, you are going to be dealing with some pests, some disease. You are going to have to deal with pruning because they will fruit a lot better if you clip off the tips of the leaves at certain times of the year. So there is some maintenance involved there. And then, but yield, let's talk yield. 150 pounds on average. That's even a little conservative. A full-grown mango tree is going to feed an entire neighborhood of mangoes, and every single neighbor is going to be sick of mangoes by the time this guy is done. That's also leading to some part of the maintenance issue because they're going to drop a lot of fruit. You're not going to be able to eat them all. Maybe you're not going to be able to have enough space to preserve them all. I guess you can make mango chips. You can make just a boatload of mango chips, but the fruit dropping, you're gonna have to dispose of it. Rats really like mangoes. So yeah, maintenance is a little tough, but man, is the yield incredible. Now this one's probably gonna surprise you. If you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you absolutely know I love Peachy the peach tree. Peachy the peach tree, so good. But there are some downsides in a small space. First, it's time to harvest. So 3 to 5 years in the ground, and then they really only produce for like 15 years. So you're gonna have to replace it every 15 years, and then you're gonna have to wait 3 to 5 years for it to produce, which is a downside. I really wish they produced longer. Eventually Peachy's gonna have to be replaced. She's 6 years old right now. She's pumping out the peaches. On average, a peach tree is going to give you about 50 pounds worth of fruit. The yield is pretty good. Not mango good, but pretty good. And when you eat these peaches, like, oh, let's talk about the Brix scale, the sweetness scale. They are 11 to 18, so just under the mangoes and above most of the other smaller fruits that we talked about. This is a tropical beauty. It is incredible tasting. It's a yellow peach. I'd definitely go with a yellow peach rather than a white one. If you only have space and you really do want to grow it, go with the yellow. You can preserve and can yellows, and I just feel like the texture inside is less mealy than a white one. Height-wise, Peachy's a semi-dwarf. I keep her, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet tall. You can keep them that way if you prune them, but any other peach tree, other varieties, they can get much larger. They can get into the 20-25 range. So it's a big tree. And if you do want to keep it small, you're going to be dealing with a lot of maintenance. You're going to be dealing with a lot of maintenance anyway, especially down here in Florida, right? Pests, disease, pruning appropriately, picking up the fruit so that the squirrels aren't eating it all off the ground, attracting rats. Like, there's a lot. Now, I don't do a lot with her because I did buy a variety that is meant for Florida, so I don't deal with as much disease, but I do deal with pests. I have a Sri Lanka weevil that loves this tree, tears it up every summer. I have pruning that I have to do on her, and it has to be really precise, otherwise it can affect my fruit the next year. She's just a little finicky. I think she's worth it, but she's finicky. The last one on our list of fruit trees that I definitely wouldn't grow in a small space is going to be this guy. And I know this is going to break some hearts, but that's an avocado. This is a day avocado, and it is known for being compact, and it is known for handling some of my winters here. And it does, kinda. But for being compact, right now it's 20 feet tall. And it can get bigger. I am gonna have to top this. They can typically get into the 30 feet range. They're incredibly tall. And then they're gonna get just as wide. Now, in terms of fruit, this is where the bad news comes in. They can take anywhere from 5 to 8 years to produce. A lot of people start their avocados from seed because it is a variety that kind of comes out with all different kinds. You know, if you grow from seed, you're not going to get true to seed, meaning the exact same tree, but you are going to get something cool, and a lot of people like to do that. Minimum 8 years before it's going to fruit. Minimum. I bought mine as a grafted adult, very large tree. I think it was 6 feet when I got it, and it took 2 years. It fruited 1 year, and then alternating years it doesn't fruit. So this year it didn't fruit. Now, it didn't fruit for a number of reasons. One, it had a heavy fruit set the first year that it fruited, and then second, we had a really cold winter, and when it started to put buds on, we had like 23 degrees for 2 nights in a row, and that was it. It froze off all of those, so we're definitely not getting fruit this year. So that's a risk that you're taking, putting such a large fruit tree in, and you may or may not get fruit depending on your weather, or depending on if it's an alternating year. Thankfully, this weather happened on an alternating year, so I didn't get fruit. Now, some people do get fruit off their avocados every single year. It's still a chance, it's still iffy. I don't think I have to tell you from a brick scale sweetness. It has no sweetness. Avocados are not known for that. They're known for their fat, nuttier content. So we're talking a 1 to 2 on the brick scale, but I think you guys already knew that. I almost forgot to mention that avocado trees benefit from 2 trees. So up until now, all the ones that we've talked about really can just manage with 1 tree. Well, lowquats. Lowquats need 2 trees, but there's so many people that grow them as ornamentals. Like, I only have 1 tree and it fruits just fine. But avocados, they not only need a second tree, but they also need what's called an A versus a B. I believe mine, I think it's an A, but you want a B close by. Thankfully, my neighbor across the street, I believe, has a B, and they are pollinating each other. But if you have a small space and you don't have neighbors that have avocado trees, you are gonna need to put 2 of these big trees in your yard, and they have to be the proper types that flower at the same time and have the opposite flowering pattern. That's what that AB means, is the pattern of when that flower opens as a female versus when it opens as a male. It's a little more complicated, but the cool thing about avocados is you get a lot of fruit. They're like the mangoes. We're talking 150 pounds of yield about every other year. And that is an incredible amount of fruit. And then if you end up having 2 trees, that's 300 pounds of fruit. It's a lot of avocados. So then you're gonna have to figure out what to do with it. You're gonna have to deal with the maintenance of cleaning it up. Avocados, depending on the variety you grow. If you grow the Florida avocado, you're gonna have a lot less issues with maintenance in terms of disease and pests. Mine is, I think, a Guatemalan hybrid. It's kind of like a mix between a Hass and a Florida. So it does have some disease, it does have some pests, but I don't treat it, it does just fine. But if you're trying to do a Hass, you're gonna have immense amounts of problems because of, you know, the wet conditions. They're not used to that. They like warm, dry. That's why they grow so well out in California. So here in Florida, they're a little bit more tough. Now, you probably noticed throughout this video that I mentioned some things that you shouldn't get in a small space, living in a small space with those trees. By all means, guys, get the tree that you want. Get the fruit that you'll eat. But if you want to start small and you want to start either in containers or you just have a tiny area, those top 3 are going to be where it's at. But if you absolutely love mangoes or you absolutely love avocados, find a spot in your yard and dedicate it. But I'm just trying to open your mind to the fact of what some of these trees require versus what some of them don't. And needing to, with this size, I could put like 4 citrus in this area where 2 avocados would live. I could have a grapefruit, an orange, a kumquat, a lemon, all in the same spot that 2 of these avocados would take. So just think about that when you're thinking about the fruit trees that you want to grow. I hope this was helpful. Make sure to check out my ebook, Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide. It talks about all the different vegetables that you can grow here in Florida and how to do it with everything you ever wanted to know. Happy gardening, guys.